Hey everyone, so let's dive right in. I'm going to start out with the stencil called Big Bloom, and it's a 6x6 stencil. And I'm creating a hinge with my painter's tape. So the cardstock that I'm working on is a piece of Bristol vellum. No, I'm sorry, watercolor. Watercolor, Canson XL watercolor paper. And I cut that to be just a little bit larger than a 6x6. I am going to be cutting this down. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to make a 6x6 card or if I was going to make a standard A2 size card. But I did finally go with a standard A2. So I have these Post-its. Now, no one please stress. I don't want anyone stressing here. No stress. I save these pieces when I tear them up. I'm sure somebody would have, hollered at me for tearing up all of these pieces of Post-it. But for me, this is easier to mask off in a stencil with just these pieces, getting in those corners. I then come in with some painter tape over the top just to hold all of them down because they may not stick there, but I need them to stay flat. So by putting that painter's tape there, it just helps to keep them in place. I'm focusing on the flowers of this Big Bloom here, and I'm using saltwater taffy and fired brick. I am loving this combination. Very much so, yes. Now, you're going to see that I'm using my blending brushes, and I've got a nice coating of the saltwater taffy. I'm now going to come in with the smaller brush with the fired brick. Here's what you need to make sure of, and I am going to slow this section down. Actually, I'm going to keep it in regular speed. When I lift this, I pressed so hard with my blending brush that the ink went up underneath the stencil, and it kind of created this I didn't have those white lines anymore, which, okay. Notice I keep going. We don't stop. I'm now coming in with bundled sage and then rustic wilderness. So my first layer for the whole leaf is going to be the bundled sage. Then I'm going to come in with the rustic wilderness just at the bases, just to give a little bit of dimension to these images. I'm still, as I'm doing this, my brain is actually thinking, okay, how am I going to fix this? This is, and of course, the first thing that came to my mind was my sentiment's going to go right across that. No worries. We're just going to put that sentiment right across it, and we're going to be good to go. So that's what was going on in my head at this point, because I'm always trying to think of the next step. Okay, where am I going to go here? Because I don't plan my cards out. I choose the stamps or dies that I want to work with. And then it's really at that moment where I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. And then I just go through it. I'm using the speckled egg for the dots in the background. Now, of course, as I'm using this small blending brush, I have learned my lesson, and I'm not going as hard as what I did prior. So yeah, I just thought that was, and again, I wasn't cleaning my brushes off either. I was going directly from the pad to the paper. So you can really see that, and you can see all the ink that just came up underneath the stencil as well. Again, I wasn't tapping off any of the ink, which you should do. So I'm sitting there, here come the finger twiddlings. This means I'm thinking again, still thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So my first thought, again, what was still going on in the back of my mind is the sentiment's going to go right across this. But I also wanted to find a way to distract from that, just in case. So I'm taping the stencil back in place, and I have this script stamp set. It's by All and Create. I believe that's the name of the company. And I'm using my archival ink. And I saw Gina K do this recently, where she stenciled over a stencil. So I'm like, okay, why can't I stamp through a stencil? So that's what I did there. I should have made it darker, but I did go with the brown, my brown archival. I could have just gone with the black, but I didn't want to add any black to this. Here I'm still, and again, my mind is still thinking, okay, that sentiment's going to cover it. We're all going to be good. I've marked off the center of my card and then where the 4 1/4, the 4-inch mark would be. Because this panel here is cut to 4 by 5 1/4, and it's going to be matted onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 craft, or Desert Storm card base, or design panel. I'm going around each of the panels with Vintage Photo. Yeah, you knew when I used the brown archival, you knew the Vintage Photo was coming in, right? And I'm going to tape this down onto that panel. And here's where I'm like, okay, here comes the sentiment. I am using the Happy Birthday Chunky Script die set. And it's a great die set. It doesn't have a cloud. It's just got this beautiful, chunky script going across it. I've placed this so far onto my standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and this will be a top folding. That's where I said, nope. I don't want to put my sentiment across the image. I was going to lose the image. Yes, what you saw at the bottom of the screen, I sprayed this with a water bottle. These are Distress inks that I used. They are water reactive. So while this is wet, I'm coming in. Now, the archival ink that I stamped isn't going to go anywhere, but the other ones are. So I came in with a brush just kind of to force it throughout, to force those water bubbles to come through. And that did the trick. Now, I had to have that. Now, I'm so sorry. I didn't show you when I had the die cut, but I have the Happy on the front with Vintage Photo towards the bottom. And I put the birthday on the inside towards the bottom. And I did the same thing that I did to the flower. I added Vintage Photo to the bottom and I sprayed it to get all of those mists and bubbles and bobbles there. So, again, when we make a boo-boo, stick with it. You just don't know what you're going to create, how it's going to end up, and I can guarantee you that you're going to love it. Again, it's a piece of art. Okay? So all the products that I used will be linked down below, along with links to their shop, their galleries, and ways to connect with Paper Rose. So make sure you do that. And if you have any questions, make sure you leave those down below as well. And we'll get right back to you as soon as we can. Take care, enjoy, and remember, always be creative. Till the next one, guys.